Welcome to Takeaway, a weekly conversation with the leadership team here at Silverdale, where we talk about our takeaways, our reflections from this past weekend's worship service. And I'm super excited today to have Evan here with us. Evan, thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Now, if you don't know Evan leads worship out at our North Ooltewah Campus. And you do an incredible job with that, man.
Well, thank you.
I honestly, I haven't had opportunity to see you in action at North Ooltewah, but I did when he was a part of the Creekside worship team.
Mm-hmm.
And love just your heart for worship, love just the way you engage with people. So thanks again for being here.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, I'd love for those of you that don't know Evan, I'd love for you just to tell us a little bit about Evan the man and your family, a little bit about some of your loves and likes and things like that. Just let us know who you are.
Yeah. So like Michael said, my name's Evan. I'm married to my wife, Andrea. We've been married for 3 years. We are fairly new to the Chattanooga area, so we've been here about a year and a part of Silverdale for about that same amount of time. Love to do anything outdoors. So hiking, fishing, anything
just
outdoors. Anything outdoors.
Just the outdoor guy. I love that.
Yeah, so we love to travel. That's a big thing that we really are passionate about. So we love to see new places and experience things from different cultures.
That's cool.
Love food. I'm a big foodie. So
are you a foodie?
Yeah. So we
well, let's talk about that off camera and see if I can figure out some.
There you go. Yeah.
Places.
So we love to try new places around town and other places that we go. And then we spend a lot of time at the lake in the summer. So we enjoy that with our family and guess that's a little bit about us.
So how did you get into leading worship? Tell us a little bit about your journey down that road.
Yeah. So I grew up in church and was a part of student ministry when that age came, and probably picked up a guitar for the first time when I was about 12 years old. Had played a little piano maybe as well, and started playing with the student worship team at church, and just quickly fell in love with with music in the church, and so being able to use singing, playing for Christ, and being able to lead people and worship with people in that setting was really awesome. I think it set me up for what I'm doing now. And so at about 16, I really felt the Lord just pull at my heart. This is what you were made for. This is what you're supposed to do. And so this was a little over 10 years ago. And so even being able to do worship in a job capacity within the church was not super common to be able to do it full time, I guess, at the time, and other than maybe some really large churches, that kind of thing. And so my prayer was, God, how do I kind of position myself to be able to step into that calling fully in that way, because that's what I was passionate about. That was it. I
love that. I don't think you know this, and you may or may not know this, but when I started in ministry, I was in worship leadership.
Okay.
That's what I did. That my background was in music, and I tell people that the Lord delivered me from that about 10 years ago. maybe the Lord delivered the church from that too, but I loved it, and I love that you love it.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, I mean so many different things. My mind just goes to a number of just wonderful places. I think here at Silverdale, we're so blessed to have men and women on staff and serving in volunteer capacities that have been here their entire lives. Some of these guys and gals have been on staff for 20 plus, 30 plus years, and bring such a wealth of history and knowledge and maturity to what we do here at Silverdale. And then there's guys like me that are sort of in that middle stage. I'm 46. I've been here about 9 years now.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think, man, 9 years, that feels like so long. But when you talk to somebody who's been here for 30, it's not really.
Yeah.
And then you've got guys like you who are just not even a year into ministry here at Silverdale. And it brings a lot of hope to me to see young guys with just such incredible passion for leading the church in worship.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited.
That's awesome.
I'm so excited.
Well, we are too, man.
And North Ooltewah is all the better having you out there as a part of that team. Tony this weekend preached on Hebrews chapter 3, talking a lot about rest. How do you find rest in this restless world is one of the first questions he brought up as he got started.
$1 million question.
So true, right?
Yeah.
So true. And I love where he went with this. He talked a little bit at first about there is no rest in rebellion. And I don't think I can hear that enough. I don't know. Speak into just a little bit about how this message, as Tony got into this idea of rest and restlessness, ministered to your heart.
Yeah. I think one of the first things that kind of comes to mind for me is that, what we do is, we're working with people every day. And so I have a natural tendency probably to, you're walking with people through life, some of their toughest times, right? And we're experiencing that with them. We're walking through that with them as it relates to what we do, in ministry in the church. And so I think a lot of times I can, maybe some others too can relate, but you can take on some of those burdens and that weight, and it is very tiring. It can be very exhausting, and it can be really, maybe even I could say detrimental to your own self. And so for me, this has been really impactful and timely, because something that I'm trying to work on in my ministry career and my life in general with my wife is just that finding that rest in a healthy way. So creating kind of patterns and structures to allow myself to be able to do this and be sitting here when I'm 46 and saying, that I've been here for this long, been in ministry for this long, because I think so many times we just see the opposite of that happen.
It's so true. You can work yourself in ministry into a really bad place.
Yeah.
Where you lose your peace, you lose your joy, because you're doing a lot of it in your own strength. I appreciate so much, your transparency in saying that that's something that I'm having to try to work through as I go through this too, because we need Jesus in these ways as worship leaders and as pastors just as much as everybody else.
Absolutely.
We're human just like everybody else, and we need God's peace and God's rest. And as Tony talked about in the message, that it's fun and good, and I'll use my words, but as I understand what he was saying, fun and good, and just brings a lot of joy to talk about how good God is when things are going good.
Yeah.
But then you hit a rough patch, and if we're not careful, so I just look at my notes from that, we'll start to look at God and say, where are you? You were there when it was good, but I don't feel like you're here right now when things are a little tougher. And the reality is God is good in those times, that he is faithful in those times, and that we can experience him when the world around us is restless. For you as a worship leader, you get the opportunity and the responsibility to try to craft a worship experience for us that brings us into a place where we're ready to hear God's word in the message, that we're ready to hear from God through the song. So, what's part of that process that you go through as you're thinking about the worship service to help us get ready?
Yeah.
Love that.
I had watched the video with Clayton last week, and just echo a lot of the same things. Great guy. Clayton and I feel just have a lot of similarities in worship leadership and things, and so I can echo some of the things and maybe speak to a couple of new things possibly. But
yeah, now if you didn't hear Clayton's, you can go back and watch that on YouTube, and maybe even on Facebook. If you go scroll down far enough, you'll find it. But
that's it. Yeah. So a big part of kind of my process with that would be as he mentioned, partnering with Tony's notes, his message notes. We know kind of the direction that the Lord's been leading him, and so finding themes. So kind of creating a cohesive service flow, if you will, to where it feels that, from the moment you walk in and join with the church, that you're on this journey for just an hour, however long it is, but where, God is able to use our time together in worship, our message, and just the community to really just bring that sense of cohesiveness. So that's something that I really try and focus on. So if there's themes, if there's certain words or phrases that I know, certain songs speak to, great way to partner those together.
That's super helpful, because it is a process. I think it's helpful for us to hear that. It is a process you go through to help craft a worship service. It's not something we just throw together last minute. There is a process that we go through because of our desire to lead people into the presence of the Lord.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's nothing, and we have to guard against this too, because we're human, but there's really at the heart of it, there's not this desire for us to put ourselves before people. We want to put Jesus and all his glory and his majesty and how wonderful he is before people.
Yeah.
You know, as I think about Tony's message down towards the end of what he had to say, he said that God's rest is only found in Jesus. Yeah. And so for you, as you're on this journey like the rest of us, trying to find your rest in Jesus, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. I think something that comes to mind right away that, will be a journey that I'm on as long as I'm alive. But this idea of we're a cup, okay? And you've heard this probably shared, but, it fills and it's poured out on a regular basis because we are giving of ourselves every day. And then hopefully we are also feeding back into ourselves, pouring back into ourselves. And Jesus ultimately is the one who does that. But I think, something that I'm learning and hopefully growing in is just this idea that you cannot operate in a place of emptiness. And so that for me is my unrest. And so, or my tiredness would be, every day giving of yourself, and we're doing this. And so our spiritual disciplines that we talk about that are so important, staying in the Word, reflecting, praying, talking to God, spending time with others, maybe if that's a way that you recharge, spending time with your family, these things that we can do to fill our cup back up, and make sure that we are operating from a place of fullness. I think that's really important. So that's what comes to mind when I hear what rest means for me. So it means me doing my best to keep my tank full, and asking God to do that for me while I am also, pouring out as well. So
I think that's super helpful. I think that's super, super wise too.
Awesome.
For all of us to hear and be reminded, especially for those of us, whether you're in a volunteer leadership position or you're in a paid leadership position, the experience is the same. You're pouring out of yourself into others, and we need to constantly be hearing from the Lord and receiving from the Lord. So thank you for that reminder. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, so here's a question I love to ask worship leaders. I mean, I've asked this of Haley, of Sydney, and it was really funny because both of them thought I was about to ask them to sing, which is not where I was going with them and not where I'm going with you. But you do have a microphone, and you have an opportunity right here to share with people. When it comes to worship and preparing your heart for worship, we'll go at it from this angle. When it comes to preparing your heart for worship this coming weekend, what would you want people to think about and maybe even do to help prepare their hearts for this coming weekend's worship?
Yeah. And I'll speak to them in this moment. I think, something that I have recently been praying over our church each week is that we open our hearts and our minds to hear from God. And so what I mean by that is that throughout our week, even before we walk into, our gathering on the weekend and our services, that we are meeting with Jesus and we're saying, God, I know that you have something for me, right? We don't think that we just come to church and leave, and get nothing and we're not growing and we're not, moving forward in our faith. And so that's always my prayer. So that's what I would love to just encourage everyone here to be doing is to be asking God, help my heart and my mind to be open to hear what you have for me, what you want to say to me. And so I think when we approach our weekend gatherings with that mentality of God has something to say, he has something for our lives, that we just really set ourselves up to receive that and to hear that. And so, and that's part of the worship in spirit and in truth is just, God, I know you have something for me. Help me to receive it. Help me to be open to hear what it is. And so I think that we can experience that through, again, our worship time of singing, our time of hearing God's word, preach to us, and then also just our time in community together on the weekend. So that's my thoughts.
Super helpful, super applicable. Did I say that word right? Applicable? Is that right? Yeah. I think I did, but yes, it's super helpful. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
And, for you, as you're going to be preparing your heart, it's still a few days away, but for this coming weekend's worship, we do hope that you'll be a part of one of our services. We have services on Saturday night here at the Bonnie Oaks campus, and then all over the greater Chattanooga area on Sunday mornings. We have a variety of times and locations. Make sure you check out our website. There's a link below to show you how to get there for times and locations, even a couple of online services if you can't attend in person. Dude, thank you so much for being here today. I'm
Absolutely.
so grateful to have you on staff.
Thanks for having me.